Is Mario the reason that we jump so much in video games? First of all, if you missed it from the end of last week's comments, this is our new set. We actually found it behind our old set, which is kind of crazy. There's actually more of the set right over there, but we'll show you that next week. Jumping in video games is like spaghetti and meatballs or chicken and waffles. It's just the right thing to do. If you're playing a game and your character has 2 legs and 2 feet, you're probably going to be doing it. Jumping, that is, not eating chicken and waffles, although that would be nice. This includes, but is not limited to, bouncing on your shovel like a pogo stick in Shovel Knight, double jumping into a wall jump into another double jump into a wall jump in Super Meat Boy, or even using rockets to improve your verticality in Team Fortress 2. All of this jumping in games is a little bit weird because people rarely, if ever, jump in their everyday lives. Well, most adults, that is, with the notable exception of Bill Gates.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
But think about it. When's the last time that you, game show viewer, actually had to jump? Yeah, I thought so. So why are we always jumping in games then? Well, it can all be traced back to a little game called Super Mario Brothers. You might have heard of it before. When I think back to Super Mario Brothers, I tend to conjure up those iconic bad guys, the invisible blocks, hiding one-up mushrooms, that dance you could do at the top of the vine, and those rotating pillars of flame in Bowser's castle. Super nerve-wracking, right? But deep down, Super Mario Brothers is ultimately a game about jumping. I know it seems obvious, but hear me out. Before being christened as Mario was named Jumpman. That's how important jumping actually was. As game designer Anna Anthropy says, if Mario is most of the sentence in Super Mario Brothers, then jump is the verb that follows. Now the jump actually existed before Mario. It goes all the way back to games like Checkers or Sorry or that peg game at Cracker Barrel. It's what board game historian David Parlett calls games of leaping capture. But Mario, he raised the bar.
It's everything you've dreamed of and worlds more. Only from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power.
The fact that Mario jumps is no big secret. I know. I can feel you rolling your eyes, but let me continue. Mario's jump is maybe the most influential mechanic ever developed, aside from moving left or right. What made the jump for Super Mario Brothers so groundbreaking is that it had its own specific physics. This part coming up is a little bit like 11th grade math homework, but trust me, it'll be way more fun. What I mean by physics is that the distance Mario hops is determined by calculations of gravity and velocity. So if you just press jump, Mario will do something like this, or this. But if you got a running start and jumped, you could leap all the way from the staircase to the top of the flagpole. What's more, his leaps were affected by gravity. The way this works, as explained in the research of Jason Beggy, is that jumping is treated as an oppositional force. The longer you hold down the jump button, the higher Mario jumps. He actually slows down and almost seems to float as he reaches the highest point of his jump, then accelerates as he falls back to Earth, or the Mushroom Kingdom rather. Other game characters from that time weren't nearly as nimble. The jumps of Simon Belmont from Castlevania and Sir Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins always followed the same preordained path, so you were screwed when that stupid bat flew in your path, as it always did. It seems like a subtle distinction, but it's what game designer Steve Swink calls game feel, which is the idea that the responsiveness of our character plays a big role in our enjoyment of a given game. It's also an explanation for why Mario's jumps feel so good, and even better, the thrill of Mario's jumps only increased in future titles. In Mario 3, you could jump and wag your raccoon tail to fly. In Super Mario World, you got that amazing cape so you could swoop down. And then in Mario 64, it got real. Mario could triple jump, wall jump, run fast, duck into a slide, and then vault himself forward. He could run one way, cut back, and do a side flip. We don't throw around the word mind-blowing that often here at Game Show, but it was mind-blowing. In fact, according to Giles Goddard, that's the guy who moved to Japan when he was 18 years old to create the 3D technology behind Star Fox, before Shigeru Miyamoto started designing the levels in Mario 64, he created a small 3D garden, or a play space, where he could endlessly tinker with Mario's movements, giving them that perfect feel and nuance. But here's the catch. As refined as Mario's jump might be, it's nowhere close to realistic. We humans as a species, we excel at running. We have powerful Achilles tendons to propel us forward. And this is crazy, but in a couple cases, marathoners have actually outrun horses in long distance races. But when it comes to jumping, our bodies kinda suck at it. In their paper, Why Do People Jump the Way They Do?, researchers at Vrije University in Amsterdam say our ability to get airborne is constrained by our musculoskeletal system. Basically, our body shape governs how well we jump. Our legs are of decent length, but our feet are kinda small, and we're a bit heavy. Frogs, on the other hand, have incredibly long legs with large feet to propel their relatively lightweight bodies forward. Allow me to demonstrate. That was me jumping, obviously. But let's look at another amazing leaper, LeBron James. At 6'8", LeBron James can get about a foot above the rim, meaning he has an elevation of about 3 or 4 feet, around half his height. Mario, on the other hand, can jump 5 times his own height. This would be like LeBron James jumping over 30 feet in the air, basically over a 3-story house. Even if he was able to do this by some act of God or a new pair of sneakers, the fall would break his legs, or worse. And yet Mario does it over and over and over again. It's gotta be the shoes, right? While video games have advanced in terms of realism, the jump remains blissfully the same. Video games still tap into that unreality we saw in Mario's leaps. Look at Braid, which has the ability to jump and rewind time.
You about to die. You be like, oh, I'm gonna die.
Even otherwise realistic games like Mirror's Edge have ridiculous leaps. And don't forget about the Mario Galaxy games where Mario is at last free to live out his destiny of infinitely jumping around small planets with variable gravities and questionable results. Jumping in games is all about aspiration. Because humans are so bad at it, we derive great joy in doing it vicariously through someone like Mario. It's the same reason we like to fly fighter jets or take cover in a shootout. Games give us a safe way into the realm of fantasy, where we can really jump over giant canyons. And when it's done well, when it's done really, truly well, jumping just feels good. So what do you think? Is Mario the reason why we jump so much in video games? Hash it out in the comments, and if you like what you saw, please subscribe. I'll see you next week. Last week we talked about whether or not half of all gamers are women. Let's see what you had to say. Ivory Oasis astutely pointed out that at points I kind of equated casual gamers with women, which ultimately wasn't my intention. But she makes this point that 40% of all Xbox players are women, half of all Nintendo Wii players are women. So the idea that there are just men on these hardcore consoles is a bit of a myth, and that's a really good point. I didn't mean to equate those two things. I was merely trying to say that when you look at gamers in terms of people who play games at a broad level, you see a lot of diversity there. But yeah, thank you for calling me out on that. Yogs Cast Will says that a big problem is with the vernacular, like the way that we talk about the word gamer. So that's like saying that everyone who eats food is a foodie, according to Will, or everyone who watches movies is a cinephile. And I guess that's a big piece of the issue, is that I understand on the high end, someone who plays a lot of games could be called a gamer, but we don't even have a term for someone who doesn't spend 20 hours a week. And I think that that's, again, as I pointed to in the episode, that's one of the big problems, is that the term gamer is both an identification of a particular type of person, but it's also a description of a human activity, which is playing games. I don't have a solution out of this, but I think that that's where a lot of the resentment and discord is coming in. One of the things about a silent majority is exactly that they're silent. So talking about the issue about whether or not women play certain games but don't speak up or don't use voice chat or whatever is sort of difficult unless women identify themselves. So I really appreciate Ana Paula Lopez, who pointed out that she's someone who plays a lot of quote-unquote hardcore games, but feels really discouraged, dismayed, unwelcome in places because of her gender. Regardless of how you feel about the statistics that half of all gamers are women, maybe you really don't agree with me or not. When you encounter someone like Anna on a game, there's really no excuse for treating her poorly. She just wants to play alongside of you. So at the very least, show a little human decency. So a bunch of you pointed out a UCLA survey of incoming freshmen' media consumption habits, specifically the fact that those who played video games for more than 20 hours a week were predominantly male. Ergo, all gamers are mostly men. So let's throw out for a second the stuff I talked about in the episode about people who play quote-unquote casual games, spending more time and money. Let's just ignore that for a second. If what's required for you to call yourself a gamer is spending more than 20 hours a week playing video games, then I'm not a gamer, and I host a show about video games. If that doesn't qualify you, then I don't know what does. I mean, look, compared to other mediums, spending 20 hours on something is a lot of time. If you love football, for example, maybe you spend 7 hours on Saturday, 7 hours on Sunday, but you're probably not spending 20 hours a week watching football. The people I know who are really into food aren't eating for 20 hours every single week, eating fine, fancy meals. People I know who are really into film aren't watching a 2.5-hour movie every single day. So look, if that's where the bar is, then I guess count me out. The dream is over.